It's really very cool. It's the best thing Chrysalis has ever done. It really floats my boat. I really love it. Cool doesn't cut it. It really is the best. Check this A flat minor chord. Tune this G flat 7. D flat 7. E flat minor. Love this Vocoder. It's really very cool. It's the best thing Chrysalis has ever done. It really floats my boat. I really love it. Cool doesn't cut it. It really is the best. Check this A flat minor chord. Tune this G flat 7. D flat 7. E flat minor.
My mic is muted. Sorry about that. I do that occasionally. Sometimes I forget that the mic's not muted. But there we go. I'll start again. Welcome to this extremely well-rehearsed, very special edition of Sunday Night Live with me, Jonny Lipsham, here at jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk in Midlothian in Scotland, capital of Britain, capital of Europe, capital of the world, and the solar system and everything in it. I hope everyone is doing well. Keith was saying that I probably had to go for a pee. No. No, I didn't. I actually had a small technical problem I needed to fix. So there we go. But it's fixed now, fortunately. And it was to do with keyboard shortcuts. I had forgotten that I had OBS in focus, and when it's in focus, my keyboard shortcuts in Studio One don't work. And in fact, they start triggering things in OBS, which is why my mic was muted. So, there we go. So that explains that to you guys. Now, we have a good number of people here, which is fantastic. I'm very happy to see everybody. Which is great. And I'm just going to see how many. Good grief, we've already got 25 people here, which is amazing. Thank you everybody for coming. And if you are new to my show, then please do go down there, I think it is. Or is it over there? It's over there. It's over there. Over there. Go and hit the subscribe button, and the like button would be greatly appreciated as well. And when you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell as well and select all notifications, because I've got a bunch of other things coming for Studio One 6, including this very special live stream. There's a whole bunch of other things coming. I've added some extra videos, so we should have a nice little series of about 8 videos there now. And this live stream is going to go into the Studio One 6 playlist. It will not go into my normal Sunday Night Live playlist. So this is going to go there. And also, there will be another one. So if you, for whatever reason, have not been able to make all of this particular episode of the show, then don't worry. We're going to do another one. Because next Sunday is going to be a double whammy of special. Because next Sunday, not only are we going to do more Studio One 6, but it's also my birthday. So we've got double the reason to celebrate. So we'll just make a bit of a party of it. So, and I will not play any of those cheesy songs that get played at birthdays. But because I'll get a copyright strike if I do that. So we don't want to do that. But thank you everybody for coming. So if you are new, and you're watching this but you're not subscribed, you can't interact in the chat until you subscribe. So hit that subscribe button, and you have to wait a few minutes once you've done that, and then after a short period of time you will be able to say hi in the chat. So please do that. I'd like to meet some new people. That would be awesome. We got 27 people here, which is fantastic. So if you're new, make sure you're subscribed. and then that way you can say hello in the chat, and I will give you a shout out. As many people as I can, I will give a shout out to. If you've got a question regarding Studio 16, please get that in the chat as well. And the best way to do that is to type at Jonny Lipsham Studios at the start. And what that does is that highlights my name in red. And then I know that that's a question, because I know you guys are going to be interacting with each other in the chat during the show. That's fine. I encourage that, but it makes it harder for me to see a question unless you do that. And I don't want to miss your questions because your questions are important to me. So I don't want to miss anybody out. Now, we have a question that came in before the start of the show, which I have pinned to the top of the chat. So if you get your questions in early, that's what I do. I will pin them to the top. I can only pin one question at the top, though. So I will always pin the first question. So please kind of keep that in mind. All right, let's go see who is here. I normally do this as well. To those of you that are new, I normally give a shout out to people who are first in the door. And I have to go see who that was. I think that might have been Billy Morgan who was first in the door. Ronald Figura is here as well. Sean Aaron is here. Kevin's Guitar Stories is here. Lollipop Gill is here. My Personas, that's my good friend Rich Cresswell, is here. Let's see who else is chatting away here as well. Ambient Dave is here in the UK, which is where I am as well, which is awesome. Ironweed Studios is here, which is fantastic. Long time no see. Starlight G Recording is here, and he's the one that has the question, which is fantastic. Glad you are here. Not seen you for a long time, so I'm glad you're here. Bellap Studios is here as well, who is another long-time supporter of the channel. Dwayne is here. Roger Beckett is here. Thank you, Roger, for coming. You and I have talked a wee bit, which is great. Don Oliver's here. Keith, as I said, over in Canada is here. And Mika Han is here as well, talking about Fader Flip. Fader Flip is awesome, by the way. The W5 family are also here, which is great. And Cleon Richardson is here as well. Yes, Ambient Dave is over in the darkest, deepest parts of Hampshire. Hampshire's a very interesting county. I've played county cricket against Hampshire. And I have won as many games as I have lost in Hampshire. So Hampshire's a good place. Nice people. Let's see. Paul Morgan is here as well. Troy G is here. Fantastic. Steve Petrinko is here as well. Rhythm Hoos is here from St. Lucia. Wow, that's awesome. St. Lucia. Gorgeous. Peter Brooks is here. John Lake is here. And Holmgear Balderson. I apologize. I probably completely butchered your name, but I have an excuse. I'm Scottish, so I'm sorry about that. But he says, hey. And Bobby Booth is here, so we can start the show now, because Bobby's here. Bobby Booth, just in case you don't know, it says Bobby's Booth Mixing and Mastering Service. Go check him out. He is a fantastic mix engineer. He is probably also one of my oldest, and I'm not talking about age here, I'm talking about longest time, supporter of everything I do. He has been here since the start. Way back, oh gosh, I can't even remember how long it's been, but we have done well over 250 shows now. And Bobby Booth, rather, has been involved in pretty much every single one, as has Billy Morgan as well. So I'm very, very appreciative of all of my friends who are here, who support what I do. We got 30 people here, which is almost a record. The record is 34, so if we get 5 more people in here watching this show, it'll be a record, and that'd be awesome. So, okay, now that we've got all the pleasantries out the way, and John Lake is here as well, I think I missed you out, and Ember, he says, wow, it's Sunday. Yes, it's Sunday. So for those of you that are new and have never been here before, I do this show every single Sunday, except when Christmas falls on a Sunday or some other public holiday that is kind of a universal public holiday falls on a Sunday as well. I don't tend to do those. But other than that, It's every Sunday, 6 p.m. Central, right here. So I'm glad everybody's here. All right, so we're talking Studio One 6. Now, I do have a Studio One 6 series, which I hope some of you have checked out. And a lot of those videos have had an awful lot of views already. I think the one on the recording and mixing features has already gone well past 1,000 views since I put that up yesterday, which is amazing. So thank you very much to everybody that has viewed that video. So if you haven't seen any of my videos, please go watch them. Hopefully it'll help you get to know the new features and improvements in Studio One 6. And also, it'd be nice if you could also hit the like button on those videos as well. And if you've got a question that directly relates to that video, you can drop that in the comments for that video as well. That'd be great as well. And I am going to spend the next several days going back through those videos and checking for comments. And I'm going to try and answer as many questions that you guys have as I can. All right, so let's get to it. Let's get to it now. What you were listening to at the start of the show was a little bit of the vocoder, which is, by the way, enormous fun. Not just for doing kind of making chords and things like that, which I was doing in that demonstration there, but there is so many things you can do with it. You can sidechain pretty much any instrument sound to the vocoder, which is perfect for, you know, if you want to add some excitement to drums and things like that, or you want to add a little bit of vocode to a reverb even, you can get endlessly creative with it. You really can. With this new audio sidechain input feature, which is awesome. So let's go take a look at a few things. And I want to start off with the pinned question, which is from Starlight G Recording. He says, I got the new Studio One 6 and I'm glad they put a video editor and video track on it. Can I talk more about that? Yes, I can certainly do that. So let me go to Studio One 6 and I'm going to go to the start page. You're not going to see this just yet. Hang on just a second. Because I need to open up another song. Here we go. All right, so let's go over to Studio One 6, and you can't see me, but now you can. All right, so here we are in the video song, and I've got this video of snowfall just outside my house last Christmas, and we have the video track here, and what you can see here is there are numbers at the bottom, and these are the numbers in frames for each one of these thumbnails, which means you can make really accurate cuts where you need it. You can set this whole thing to frames if you want. You can set the time base to frames. I think it's the value in frames. I'm not really sure, to be honest. But as you can see, if you zoom in, actually, this time base here is in seconds. It's not in frames. I wonder why that is. Anyway, not to worry. All right, so the cool thing with this is you can now make some edits. You can adjust the length of the video. You can split at a certain point. And let's say we just want to take this section out. I can just hit delete on that bit. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Let's cut there, and let's just take that out. Now, at the moment, it's just left a great big gaping hole, which is not what we want. We can do ripple edit, providing we've got ripple edit on. So if I make that cut again, hang on a second. Let's make this cut a little bit further out. There we go. And then if I just hit delete, now the whole thing shuffles across and it fills in the gap. So you've got some basic things that you can do. You can put multiple videos on this timeline. If I go to files, let me see if I can find some more videos. Let's see if I can find some more videos that we can use. I've got all of these. Let's see what would be useful. How about a little bit of my good friend Joe Gilder? I can put this in here as well. And we can transition to having Joe straight out of this snow scene. Now, there's audio on this video and it's automatically made an audio track. You don't have to have it do this, but I think it's really handy to have it do this. Personally, I think this is really handy. So what you can do is you can go to Studio One, you can go to Options, then Advanced, and then Video. And there's a couple of advanced options here. One here I think is really important, and I personally would recommend that you have this checked. Set song frame rate to video frame rate when importing video file. So when you bring in a video file, this option here will change the default frame rate to the same one as the video. So if the video is at 29 or some other value, then when you bring it in, it changes the song frame rate to that of the video. I think this is really useful, and it basically means you don't have to think about making sure that the frame rate of the video and the song match. Studio One will do this for you automatically. And I think that's a really useful thing, so that you can just bring in video and you can get to work. You're not having to think about making sure that has happened, because if you're not careful, you can easily overlook that, and then you'll find that you'll start to get some sync issues because you've got a different frame rate for the song, a different frame rate for the video, and you'll start getting sync issues and things won't line up as you want. So having this set is important, I think. And then secondly, automatically create audio track for the sound from video. And I have this checked as well. And what that does is that just creates this track here. Now, as you can see, the record arm and monitor buttons are grayed out. You can't do anything with those. But you can put effects on this. You can put any kind of effects you want. And you can add music to this. You can add sound effects. You can add whatever you want to your video. Now, if you have more than one video on the timeline like we have here, then what you can do when you export, so this is helpful if you've got different shots for a video. So you've got shot 1, shot 2, shot 3, shot 4, you've got different cues, and you need to basically do an export of the music or the Foley or the sound design that you're doing for this one piece, but it's made up of several different shots, several different cues. Then when you've done that and you're happy with what you've done, you can go to Song and you can go Export Video. And then what you'll see here is you've got this All Videos option. This is by default, but you'll see that there's this little drop down here. Now notice, because we duplicated the Snow in Gorebridge December 2021 video, that now appears twice. And then Joe as a Scot is the other video that's on the timeline there. So if I keep it to all videos, then when I do the export, see, notice here the source format is MP4, and the file type is MP4 video. We keep all of that because we've got this box checked here, use source codecs. So if I was to export this, then all of these videos would be rendered into one video, so which is really handy. But if you need to export each individual shot or each individual cue because you want you want your director or your producer to be able to review the different shots, then you can select one of these and you can do a couple of different renders out if you want to. And then you can make this mono if you want to, or if you need to. You can bypass the master effects. You can use real-time processing if you'd prefer. Or you can select all the normal start, end markers between loops that we would normally get with exporting video or exporting a song. And then you just hit OK, and you are away, and we don't want to save it to that location. I don't know why it's come up with this one, because we don't want to save it there. But it will render as one long video. But if I go back to the start here, you can adjust this video size so you can make this large if you need to. Or you can make it really, really small, depending upon what you want to do. Now, the audio from this video, because when I shot this on my cell phone. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Again, let's go back to normal. I shot this on my cell phone from the bedroom window, and the TV was playing in the background. So that's what you hear there. And then for this video here, let's just bring this one up. So we'll catch the end of this one.
Hey, this is Joe Gilder from Presonus, and today we're talking about layers. Like an onion.
That's my good dear friend Joe doing possibly the worst Scottish accent I've ever heard. Can you delete the audio and make the video silent and then put your own music on the video? Yes, absolutely. You can certainly do that. So let's say we want Joe to be silent because we don't like what he's done. I can just select the audio, and if I hit delete there, I think it's going to delete the video. Yes, it is. So we don't want to do that. But what we can do is we just pull that all the way down. And then I can go over here. And now Joe is nicely silent. I'm kidding, Joe. Joe and me go back almost 10 years now. But yeah, so if you delete the audio, it does delete the video. But I think there is a way to separate those so that you can have independent control. I just haven't figured out how to do that yet. I've been way too busy. I've not had a whole lot of time to do it. But yeah, for right now, if you want, you can mute this audio. You could go audio, and then you could you could mute it. Is there a mute option here? Or you could just use the mute tool. Whatever you want to do. Listen to mute tool. Doink. There. Mute the audio. And now Joe's still silent. And if I really wanted to, I could overdub a proper Scottish accent for Joe, if I wanted to. So that Joe sounds a wee bit more Scottish than he does there. Alright, so that's kind of a whistle-stop tour of the video track. And it's kind of only bare bones basic video editing that you can do. But what it does do is it provides you with a nice reference point in the song, in the track, so that you can make sure that things like sound design and Foley that you need for your video line up nice and neatly. So you can completely zoom all the way in to the nanosecond if you want to. Like, look at this gap between 25 minutes, 18 seconds, or 25.18 seconds, I should say, and 25.19 seconds. So that gap there is like 1/100th of a second. And you got these frames here. So if I need to put something that is going to line up here, I can put something that's going to line up here. And I'm not having to guess where it is just from watching the video, which is what you had to do before. Now I can just look at the timeline, I can look at where it is on the video, and I can line whatever sound design, whatever sound effect I need to make that happen. I can do that there. And I can add sound effects, like if I wanted to have the audio of smacking Joe in the face, I could do that. Not that I'm going to do that, because Joe's one of my mates. I would never do that to him. But I think you get the point. You could drag the audio to another audio track to edit. Well, yeah, you could. Or you could just, you can open up the mixer here. I move this out of the way, or in fact, just make it smaller. There we go. Fit that in the gap there. Close that. Don't need any of those. I can put EQ, I can put compression, I can put limiting, I can do whatever I need to do on the audio track itself here in the mixer. Or I could send it to a reverb, I could send it to a delay, I could do whatever I want. If I want to make this, because this is kind of like a winter scene, it's snowing and all of that, I could really kind of go for making that making that the thing. You know, I don't want the TV sound playing in the background, for example. I can mute both of those. I can just grab the, I can grab the mute tool and go doink, doink, like that. And now both of those are muted, so no sound will play when I play the video. And what I can do is I can go to town on, finding wind sound effects and all sorts of other sound effects that would really enhance what you see here to make that whole winter scene come to life. And then when we see the guy walking across the street, around about this point, let's see if we can find where he comes in. Oh, we might have gone past him. Here he is. Now, I could try and match his footprints. For example, here he is, coming up, there he is. And there was our little jump for where we took that section out earlier. But what I could do there is I could find some snow footprints in snow sounds, and I could try and match his footsteps. And I could do that by zooming right in to do that. Now, one thing you cannot do is you cannot slow the video down like you might be able to do in some video editing software. You can't do that. You can't kind of slow it down and scrub through it frame by frame. But you can certainly be zoomed in to that level on the track itself, and then you can find the exact point where you want your hit point to be for those footprints, for example. So you can certainly do that. And hopefully that will help you improve how you work in video in the video track in Studio One 6, hopefully. So I hope that has answered that question. That's a belter though. So let's go back up to the top and see what questions we have at the top. After Starlight G's great question. Bellup says, this might be the point where I go ahead and do the monthly thing. I would recommend it. Ronald Figueroa says, anything new or improved in Notion? Well, this is Studio One 6. So Studio One 6 and Notion are completely separate products. So this is a launch for Studio One 6 and not for anything to do with Notion. So, I hope that answers that question. Is Bellup says 150 to upgrade to V6 or just start on the monthly thing and be done with it? Yeah, you can do either. It depends upon, are you going to need or are you going to use all the things that come with PreSonus. I would recommend that you go to PreSonus.com and hit products and then check out what you get with PreSonus and check out what you get with Studio One 6 and compare the two and decide, kind of which is going to be the best value for money for me. Because at the end of the day, yes, it's $15, $16, $17 per month for PreSonus. And with that, you get Studio One 6, you also get Notion, you also get the entire London Symphony Orchestra sounds for Notion. And you also get a whole wealth of other things and different sound sets and loop packs and all sorts of things for Studio One 6. And you also get the community, so you can interact there. You also get workspaces, which is great now that the workspaces are very deeply integrated to Studio One 6. So now you can collaborate with people in a way that you never could before with PreSonus. Before, you had to basically send something to, you had to manually upload something to the workspace. And then that person had to send that song back to you, and then you opened it up, and then you would have to, it was not very intuitive and not very kind of interactive, still a little bit kind of separate. Now, it's much more intuitive and much more interactive. Basically, you are now able to create a shared folder in the workspace, which can be updated back and forth. So if I was to create something to share with, say, Rich, for example, so that he and I could work on something, maybe something orchestral, and so he would send, we'd create this shared folder, this shared song, and then what Rich can do is he can add some files, he can add some parts to this orchestral work that we might collaborate on, and then I could receive those files, and then I could add my parts, maybe some percussion, maybe some piano, maybe some saxophones, or whatever, you know, we think is what we want to do for the piece. And then I can send those, and they get sent to the shared folder in the workspace. And then Rich can go, great, I can just receive those into the song. Because he has a version of the song on his computer, I have a version of the song on mine. And they share common files because of how they work, how they integrate with the workspace. You send and you receive files almost symbiotically. Now, me and Rich are in the same time zone. We're both in the UK. So that would work really well for us because we could almost do it in real time. You know, if we both said, hey, we're both going to be working in the workspace from 7 p.m. through until 10:30. Then we could be practically sending and receiving files in real time. And maybe we'd have a Skype call whilst we're doing it. But if you're working with somebody else in another time zone, a different part of the world, you maybe have to kind of send your stuff, and then, you know, a few hours later they would be received and then sent files back, and so on and so forth. So it might not be quite as real time, but you can certainly do that now. It's incredibly powerful. I've not really explored that very thoroughly yet because I haven't actually got anybody yet to share with, which is a bit disappointing. I would like to do some collaboration with a couple of people. I don't have tons of time for doing it, so it'd have to be a small project, but I'd certainly like to have the opportunity to explore how this kind of send and receive thing works a bit more. So maybe Rich, if he would like to volunteer to work on a short little, you know, couple of minutes long piece, that would be fun. So yeah. So the answer to that question really is kind of decide what's going to be of value to you. Is that what I've just described something that's going to be of value to you as a musician, as a collaborator, as a co-worker with other people? Is that going to work for you? Because if the answer is yes, then definitely a subscription to Personosphere would be a good thing. But if that's not what you're really into, then it might not be. Maybe the best thing for you is to go with the perpetual license and not have all of the extras that come with Personosphere, so that you can, you know, you can just kind of work away on the songs that you want to work away on. And you don't have to have all of the extra loops. You're maybe not into scoring because you don't read notation. So Notion and all of that's not going to be of any value to you. So maybe the perpetual license thing is going to be better for you. Swings and roundabouts, as my wife would say. So let's see. That is a good question, though. Let's see. Oh. I'm going to see if there's another question here. Fader flip. You guys are talking about fader flip quite a bit. Fader flip. Let's actually have a little explore of fader flip. So I'm going to open up a different song for this, and then we'll have a wee look at what this does. Because it's one way, you know, kind of talking about it in text is one thing, but let's actually take a look at it. So we need the mixer open for this. That's the wrong button. Hang on a minute, I've got the wrong thing in focus, that's why. There we go. Alright, I just have to make sure we're still streaming there because I had the the whole shortcuts thing happen there again. Alright, so fader flip, what is it? Well, what we can do now with the mixer is we can have the faders flip so that they show different things. For example, if I go over to this button here and activate this, what I can do is I can say I want to see everything that's going to the reverb. Now notice how anything that is not going to the reverb is this dark green. The fader caps have gone dark green and they've gone down to the bottom. These guys are not going to the reverb. But if I keep going across, we will find that the only blue fader is the room reverb channel over here. But you'll notice that there are these light green faders, and if I hold over the faders, they now say flipped. And the values that they are showing is the values of the sends. So for example, if I click on this guy here and adjust this, we are changing the amount of send from this to the reverb. Now, if I just stretch this up a bit and pull this up a bit, you can actually see a bit better. Notice that the plugin here, the Room Reverb Sends, are now highlighted with this nice green box, greenish yellow box. And then as I'm adjusting the fader, you can see the send is actually adjusting. See that? So this is pretty cool. All right, now I can also flip to show the analog delay. And again, this lead vocal bus is listed. There it is. All right, and let's see what else can we choose. We can also choose the hall reverb. Now, we'll notice that there's a few more things going to the hall reverb. There it is, lit up like a Christmas tree. And this is the hall reverb here. This is the one with the blue fader cap. And we can see there's a few more things that are going to that. So we got the guitars going to it a little bit, hammered organs going to it a very, very tiny amount. And the drums are going to it even less. Cymbals are going to it a little bit more. So, you know, maybe I decide, hey, you know, let's have a little bit more cymbals going to it. Well, I can adjust that here. I mean, I could just use these little send things, but as you can see, because they're quite small, they're a little bit fiddly. Or at least they always have been a little bit fiddly, which is why fader flip's really handy. But there's another thing that we can do here. If I double click on this send here, now it's opened out to this really rather much larger and easier to move. Now, as you can see, we're still in fader flip mode. So if I'm adjusting this, it's adjusting the fader as well. And I can't remember where that was set. I think it was kind of here-ish. I think is where it was. And then I can also click on this little down arrow here. And we can also lock the pan to channel, which is very, very cool for those that want to pan their sends or their channels are panned. When the channel is panned, you also want the reverb to, or whatever effect it is, to kind of follow that as well. So you can lock the pan to channel, which is very, very handy. You can also change the pre-fader send. You can also see what's going to where. And you can see any side chains, which is very, very useful. And also we can turn off the fader flip. Now everything goes back to normal. And the mixer goes back to normal white faders and blue faders as we'd like it to. So this is really, really useful. And that's what fader flip does. So Lollipop Guild asking the question here. I haven't quite figured out what this fader flip does. Everyone is so excited about. So that's kind of what it does. That's why it's so handy. So what we now find with Studio One is that there are at least 3 ways in which you can adjust sends for effect sends. So one is the old way, which is where you grab the tiny little send level thing here. Number 2 would be to double click there and adjust it, and you can adjust the panning as well. Panning has always been phenomenally difficult to adjust because it was this tiny little spot that you had to try and make sure you get the very tip of your mouse pointer directly on, otherwise it wouldn't change. But now we've got this nice big one, so it's dead easy to change. You can also change the, you can turn the pre-fader on or off, and you can set all of these things here. You can send pre-fader, you can lock the pan, you can show destination, you can flip the faders, you can do all of that from here as well. You don't have to do it from there. Okay, so, and then of course you can activate the fader flip mode instead from over here. And you can also turn it off as well. All right, so that is very, very cool. And I've gone into that in a little bit more detail, actually quite a bit more detail, on the video that I did called Recording and Mixing Features. So go check that out and you'll get a lot more information on that there. But this is cool to kind of go over this again, just to make sure that everybody kind of understands it. Because Ambient Dave is also asking the same question. Anyone checked out the new fader flip? It is a great idea. Absolutely, it really is. All right, so let's see what else you've got here. Mika says, you'll flip your lid when you understand what fader flipping is all about. Yes, absolutely. It's fantastic. He says we're running on Scottish time. I always run on Scottish time. Lollipop Gill says, is Scottish time the same as weekend time? If only that was true. I wish it was. Let's see. I'm on the hunt for other questions. On Pro Analog Mixer, channel flip means something completely different in that it switches the main mixer faders from mic line inputs to tape inputs. Yes, that's absolutely right. On an analog console, that it would mean something slightly different. Well, not even slightly different. It's completely different thing. But with this, it's flipping the faders so the faders do something else rather than just control volume, which is what they traditionally do. Faders traditionally just control volume and balance, but now you can have them control the level of sends to effects, which is something that is, I think it was probably, if not in the top, I think it may have even been in the top 3 most voted feature requests, because everybody wanted it. Let's see. Mika says, hi, does new vocoder actually vocode from your chosen source and modules? Yeah, I can show you a little bit. In fact, the video I did on the plugins, I went into a little bit more detail on the vocoder and the de-esser and the Pro EQ3. So did a little bit of a look at the dynamic aspects of it and soloing the bands, just to basically show you a little bit of how that works. So, yeah, that's a good question. Does the new vocoder actually vocode from your chosen sources and modulators? Okay, let's go over to that vocoder song that I made. And if I go back over here and if I unmute that, if I set this to record, set that to record as well. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill the voiceover mic for the voiceover send, I should say, in OBS, and I'm just going to use just the vocoder, so that you don't get it twice.
And now you should be able to hear. Oh, you might still be able to. No, you don't hear both. You should now just be able to hear just the vocoder. And I might actually put some headphones on so I can hear this a bit better. The reason I say that is because I have the speaker set really low. I have the speaker set really low so that no, that's a really low pitch. That I have the speaker set really low so that it doesn't bleed back into the mic. But yes, you can make all sorts of fun chords and sounds just by speaking in. You don't have to sing the pitches. It will make them. So it's really, really handy. Really, really handy. I changed the sound. That's really loud, 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 loud.
That might have been a little bit too loud. Sorry about that. I'm basically trying different different sounds and see what we can come up with.
Because I don't know what any of these actually sound like. Because I've never used them before. So, here we go, here we go. It's fun, isn't it? It's fun, isn't it? Isn't it really rather fun? Isn't it really rather fun? I think it is. I think it is. Really, really fun. Really, 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 really fun. Really, 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 really fun.
So yeah, you can have endless amounts of fun with that. So that's the vocoder. It's loads and loads of fun. I hope you guys could hear that. Vocoder is amazing on bass. It really is. Yes, I'm pretty sure it is. The YouTube automatic closed captions are really funny. I don't want to know what it said when I said pitch is. Does fader flip also work on Q mixes? I don't actually know. I've not tested that, to be really honest. But you're certainly welcome to give it a shot. Whilst you're in the neighborhood, may as well show off the new pan options. Yes, okay, we can show that. So let's get that out of the way. Okay, so new panning options. If I double click over here, it's a mono channel, so that's not going to work. I need a stereo channel to do this with, so I might just go and add a bus channel and double click that. So with the bus channel here, and this works with any stereo channel. Now the default has always been to balance, but now we have a dual panner, which is great. So I can now have a bit more of a dual kind of stereo pan controller instead of what we had before. And I can control click that to get that back. I can also have binaural as well. So I can either go fully left, fully right, up middle, and then I can open up the width quite a bit. And again, control click to set everything back to normal. And control click here to set that back to center. And go back to balance or whatever I might want to do. So this works on stereo channels, doesn't work on mono channels, as I kind of just showed you. For example, if I do that here. I know why it works on the Rhodes, because the Rhodes is actually in, the channel condition is set to stereo. That's why it works there. But I don't think it would work here, for example. No, we've only got mono as an option. All right, so you just basically double click in the panning area and it gives you those options. So balance, dual, and binaural are your options. So those are pretty cool. Sorry, I've got a really itchy nose. I don't know why. Let's see, has anyone had trouble running Studio One 6 on Mojave? It's supported on Mojave. It's not supported on High Sierra. High Sierra is no longer supported for Studio One 6. And the reason for that mostly is because High Sierra is not supported by Apple anymore. It's old. And so won't work at all on, it won't even install on High Sierra. So there's that. That's a really important thing to know. But Mojave and higher, it will work on. So Mojave all the way up to Monterey and whatever the new one that they're working on is called. I can't remember what it's called. And then on the PC side of things, it's Windows 10. And I think it's 1909 and higher, I think. Windows 10, 1909 and higher. And then Windows 11. So it will work on Windows 10 1909 and higher, and Windows 11. So yes, Ronald Figueroa says, I had my Mac on 1013 and I had to bump up to Monterey. Yes, you will have to do that. Tim Talks Audio is in the house. Good to see you, my friend. Long time no see, long time no hear. You and I are probably overdue a Skype call, to be honest. Mika says, one of the dozens of V6 vids I've watched, I can't remember which, I do believe I saw that Q-mixes do work with a fader flip feature. I would have thought it would. To be honest, I would have thought that it would. But yeah, I don't actually know. For sure. Let's see. Roger's talking to Sean. Windows V6 has been working great on Windows 10. Yes, it's fully supported on Windows 10, as I said. Running fast in version 5. It may well be, actually. And Stephen Stabiles. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. I'm really sorry, Stephen, but he says hi. Stephen, good to see you. Welcome. Glad you are here. Welcome to my show. Because you're new, and that's great. I like it when new people come and watch my show. It's fantastic. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope that this is valuable to you, and that you'll stick around. So please hit that subscribe button, which you obviously have done because you're in the chat. You can't chat without it. So thank you for your subscription. And hit that notification bell as well so you don't miss a thing of what I've got coming up for Studio One 6. I've already got a few videos out there. I'm going to be making some more. We're going to be doing another live show like this one for Studio One 6 because obviously I can't get through everybody's questions in such a short space of time. So, you know, I want to try and get through as many people's questions about Studio One 6 as possible and be able to demonstrate as many of the different things as possible. Bearing in mind, please go watch the videos that I've got in my series so far, and hopefully you'll find those useful and you'll get your answers in those videos as well. Somebody is pinging me. Who is pinging me? People should know that I don't do being pinged on my show. I don't know who's pinging me. Somebody was pinging me. That was a message request. Okay, I think I know what that is, and I can sort that out. Okay, sorry about that. That was important. Somebody asking me to do something really quite important, so I can do that. All right, so let's go see what we got. Korg had a vocoder 30 plus years ago. Vocoders are ancient, actually. Vocoders have been around since like the late 70s, I think. But it's great that we've now got, I mean, there are obviously some third-party options that have been around for a good while. But hey, it's about time that we had one built in to Studio One. I mean, heck, why not? Why not indeed? Why not make our own? Let's see. Starlight G Recording says it sounds like a Cylon on Battlestar Galactica. Oh, yes, it does. It does. I've often wondered what they used on Battlestar Galactica to make the voices of the Cylons. I've often wondered whether it was a vocoder, maybe then really saturated, over aggressively saturated, and then maybe compressed to Hades as well, was kind of what I thought. Bearing in mind that when Battlestar Galactica was on the first time, I was only a kid, so I wouldn't have really thought about those kind of things, but certainly over the years, I have wondered how they made those sounds for the Cylon voices. And then, of course, for Doctor Who, for the Dalek voices, but I know how they made the Dalek voices, and they didn't use a vocoder. They used a particular signal chain that is more akin to heavy rock guitars than it is to synthesis, but it's fun what they did and how they came up with those. I also know how they came up with the sound for the lightsabers in Star Wars. So, but yes, vocoders are amazing. I love vocoders, and I'm so glad that we now have one inside of Studio One as a native plugin. Sean says, I guess I should have asked what you're using before. I guess I have a little more time since I'm on Mojave on my 2012 MacBook Pro. Gosh, 10-year-old MacBook Pro. Woo! But I believe that is the last Mac OS it will support. Okay, so you're kind of... I'm not going to say you're stuffed, because it will... Studio One 6 will work on Mojave. But because your computer is a 2012 computer, it might be time for thinking about something that is a little more modern. And there are reasons for that. One of which is to do with the graphics for Metal, which is important now with Studio One. For the graphics to draw correctly and to display correctly, you kind of need a Metal compatible, wow, this is hard to say, a Metal compatible graphics card and a Metal compatible operating system for Mac OS as well. So Mojave and higher is kind of what you want for that. EMS vocoder was used for the silence. There you go. So it was a vocoder. Cool. Vocoders are ancient. Yes, 1938. Well, I didn't know that they were quite that old, so that's good. So they were done by Michael Santiago using the EMS vocoder. Awesome. Let's see, what else do we have here? Vocoders were used for encrypted messages years ago. I would not be surprised by that. I would not be surprised by that. That's probably, there's a lot of truth in there, I think. Let's see, Roger Beckett, my good friend Roger says, love the rounded corners in the V6 GUI. It does make a difference. GUI seems much easier to look at and use for some reason. I agree. I actually agree. Here's the thing. GUIs have never really been a big thing for me. They just haven't, because I think it's probably part of it comes from the fact that I have used DAWs for so long, like from the very beginning when you had Steinberg Pro 16 or Pro 12, what it was, and then you had Steinberg Pro 24 on the Atari ST, and then Cubase version 1, I think, was on the Atari ST. And then I went to PC after that and continued with Cubase all the way up until the end of 2012, beginning of 2013, when I started flirting with some other DAWs. I obviously could not go to Logic because Logic had been bought by Apple, and they said, right, we're going to make it completely exclusive to Mac, and that's it. Even though it had been PC before. It had been cross-platform before. So I couldn't go there, so I kind of flirted around with the idea of Reaper, with, what else did I look at? I looked at Pro Tools. Glad I got off that gravy train very quickly. And then I saw that Joe Gilder had switched over to Studio One from Pro Tools. And so I started watching some of his videos, and from there I actually found Jonny Geib from there. And the combination of Jonny Geib and Joe Gilder basically persuaded me that Studio One was the route to go down. So that's what I did. I sold some gear, some of my drum gear, to buy Studio One. And what a journey, you know, from like 2013, back end of 2013, to the present day. And now I work for PreSonus, which is mental. Never thought that would ever happen, I have to say. Let's see. It came from telephone. Yeah, you may well be right there. It coming from telephone technology. Lollipop Gill says, if one could route an audio track into MyTi, could one use that as a vocoder? Well, that's pretty much what I did. I was using MyTi to create all of those vocoder sounds. Let me show you how that happens, seeing as we're still on Studio One. So if I click on Edit here, you'll see that we have this sidechain feature here, and then I click on this little arrow thing here, which basically means sources. And then we'll see here that we now have two sections. You used to only have one. You used to only have just just like one set of checkboxes. Now we have two. One for output. And this basically says receive from output of channel. And then this one is create send. So if I was to click on, say, this one here and do create send. Now, do you see a send appeared here? And now we've got this little pre-fader toggle. So I can now make that a pre-fader send from the vocoder to this here, which is my drums actually. But I don't want to do that. I have the output of Mai Tai checked so that we are receiving the output of Mai Tai into the vocoder. And then then you have this automatically set to sidechain. You can have it set to internal as well, but I have it set to sidechain. And then you can play about with the attack and release and the frequencies and all of that. And you can change some of the preset synthesis here as well, which is very, very cool. And then with the noise thing here, you can replace unvoiced sounds with noise. So basically unvoiced means basically things like S's, that kind of stuff. Or you can choose this option here, replace unvoiced with direct signal. And what that means is the vocoder will take a sample of the direct signal and fill in those kind of little gaps, those things like S's that it doesn't really detect very well. And then you can blend those levels in. So if I was to put this in, my S's would be a little bit more normal rather than digitized or noise, which is what you might get. And then you can play about with the volume here. There's a volume I have these cranked. I don't know why they're cranked. Maybe they shouldn't be quite so cranked. Let's just close that. So yeah, so you can play about with all of these settings. You got different carrier noise, carrier saw, and all of that. So if you're using internal, you can set these. And then you've got the attack and release of the envelope, which is great. And you've got a whole bunch of presets. So if I click on here, there's all of these little presets that you can check out to make the vocoder sound a little bit different. You might find that some of these make it sound more clear than others. So they are well worth exploring. Keith says to be sure to mention that low latency monitoring must be off for the vocoder to work. Yes, the vocoder will not work with low latency monitoring engaged. So if you are one of those that uses the low latency monitoring path heavily, either in the green or bluesy modes, doesn't matter which, the vocoder will not work with that engaged. The reason being is that when you have a track armed to record, what it does is it splits the playback engine into two. So you have this that is playing back and you have this one that is recording. This one needs the low latency for recording so that, you know, there's as little latency as possible. And then your playback doesn't need it. And then these get combined back again at the output. So that's how the low latency monitoring path works. It splits the audio into two paths, one for recording, one for playback, and they both run on different buffers, so different latency buffer settings. And so you need one kind of for recording and one for playback. So because you are receiving output from one signal that is on the playback path to another signal that is in the recording path, it doesn't work. And so that's why the vocoder will not work when you're in the low latency monitoring path. So you have to have that turned off for it to work. Keith makes a very, very good point. But that's a good one. Mika says, biggest disappointment with V6, no screen sets, a workflow killer. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I don't think I've seen that many complaints about that, but fair enough. Jonny Guybe is here as well. He says, if you click on the Presonus logo in the vocoder, it will change colors. Presonus logo and there. Yeah, there you go. Look. Actually, only changes color to do two different. This kind of garish color, oh my gosh. That to me is, I mean, I have synesthesia. It's because my eyes don't see color, which is why I've never really had a whole lot of complaints about GUI, because my eyes don't see color, but my ears hear the color. So that's just weird sounds in my ears right now. Whereas that is kind of a little bit more, that's a little bit more metallic, which is to me what a vocoder should sound out. A vocoder should sound kind of metallic. So this to me makes sense. But yes, you can certainly do that. Thank you, Jonny, for reminding me of that. But yeah, it's a little bit garish. And it's a bit more than two colors. There's kind of a yellow thing here. There's kind of a pinky thing here. There's kind of a greeny thing here. And there's kind of a blue thing here. So it's a little bit more than two colors. And maybe that's kind of an orangey thing going on there. A little bit more than just two colors. Let's turn that back to that metallic thing now before it does my head in. But that's cool. All right, so Roger says, why does the plugin GUI look different from the other Studio One native plugins? Is this new series of plugins? Well, to be fair, the plugins, they all have a different GUI. For example, you know, if I go up here, the analog delay is very, very different compared to the beat delay, or compared to the channel strip, compared to the compressor. These are kind of all dark. The analog delay is bright, beautiful, and colorful. So, you know, there are different plugins that have different colors and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think that kind of answers that question. Is it resizable? No, it's not resizable. Vocoder is not resizable. Let's see. Billy Morgan has a good question. He says, how many colors does Pro Tools have for its plugins? Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't think they have any colors for their plugin GUIs. It's a good point. Rich says, I was able to get a song out and completed for work today in just 4.5 hours. Thanks to track presets alone. It saves the bus folders, the inserts, and the sound variations. Yes! That's what I want to hear, because Rich is a composer. He works with orchestral libraries a lot. So things like folder tracks, inserts, sound variations, bus folders, those are all really, really important to what he does. And so track presets are ideal for somebody like Rich to make his life a heck of a lot easier. And on that note, we are way over time. But you know what? This has been fun. This has been fun. So next week, as I said, is my birthday. It's October 9th. It's my birthday. So we will do more Studio One 6. So if you found that you haven't had a question answered tonight, that's okay. We can review those questions next week. Check out the playlist that I've got as well. Go through those videos and see if you get an answer to your question in those videos. Feel free to leave comments on those videos. And again, if you have questions, stick them in those videos, whichever video is relevant to the question. Or you can put your questions down here in the comments for this when it becomes a video. That would be cool as well. But we're going to pretty much call it a night there, because it is 1:15 in the morning here, and I am fully anticipating a very busy day at work tomorrow. So I kind of need to be getting some shut-eye for tomorrow. But thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate you guys a heck of a lot. You guys rock. You are the best. And thank you very much for all coming out, especially all you folks that are new to the show. Please do hit the subscribe button. Please do hit that notification bell. Please hit the like button if you thought that this show was useful and helpful to you. And feel free to visit the website down below there, jonlipshamstudios.co.uk. At the bottom of there, you'll find a contact form. Drop me an email if you have any further questions as well. And until next time, I wish you all a very good night. Good night.
It's really very cool. It makes the best thing. Resources every time. Really floats my boat. I really, really love it. Cool doesn't cut it. It
I've changed the
really
sound.
is the best.
Oh well.
Check this A flat blind chord. Check this G flat sound. It's really very cool. It makes the best thing.
I don't know why it's doing that. There we go. Let's try that again.
It's Vocoder.
I've messed up the sound for that. Anyway, good night, everybody.
This Vocoder, it's really very cool. It makes the best thing resources ever done.
Fixed.
It really floats my boat. I really